All right, welcome back, everyone. I hope you've had some really rich discussions. I got to drop into each of the rooms and there were some fantastic conversations taking place. What we're going to do now is just very briefly invite our chairs to share back just some of the key themes from the discussion. They were in putting them on the spot to have both chaired and synthesized and listened to some of those inputs. And then the question for all of us that I'll ask you to share answers in chat. And I think when we end the meeting, there'll also be a space you can put this as well, but is what are those key actions for research and practice to advance participatory AI? We're doing this in the run up to the AI Action Summit, and so really want to think about those next steps too. But I'll come first then to our development workshop, participatory AI development, and invite Anu or Meg or your nominee to share us some feedback.
Thank you, Tim. We had a really fascinating conversation, and we're just so inspired by the plenary at the start. We heard from a number of cases that are advocating for developing with and for marginalized communities, going beyond markers like efficiency and really centering people and the systemic inequities that exist within society. This ranged from like different methods and approaches for participatory actions throughout the development phase that covered co-designing models, constitutional AI, moral frameworks. We heard a really interesting call for participatory ethos building that requires continual reflection and adaptation, advocacy workflows, and really finding people that have vested interests in the tools to engage meaningfully. And I would just end with a call where we landed is that sometimes we don't need technology to solve problems, and that we really need to focus on what the problem on the ground is. And there were so much other interesting thoughts. Meg, I don't know if you want to add something that I might have missed.
Oh, I think that's the perfect distillation. I really encourage you to check out our notes doc to find the cases of co-design with these communities. We're seeing really fresh models of, for example, William having not only synchronous workshops, but an asynchronous Discord space to hang out with the teens in the Youth Advisory Council. And they were co-creating Spotify playlists to keep the energy up and keep joy. And I loved this closing comment from Ali, which is about how we so often focus on using AI to solve problems instead of figuring out what the problems are, and that sometimes you do not need AI. So thank you for that, Ali, and I encourage everybody to share their emails in the chat so they can keep the conversation going.
Wonderful, thank you. We will come next to our governance theme. Vinay, to you.
Thank you, Tim. We had a really interesting discussion that looked at four slightly different topics. And the first was a wonderful, extensive participatory engagement that was run and looked specifically at the way they engaged with experts. And Teresa has shared, the beautiful report that they come up with, and you can access that. And then from there, we moved to looking more at sort of Pan-African policy on AI governance and looking at the role that participation really played there, from which we moved more specifically to looking at how the Nigeria AI Collaborative is structured and how it's looking to take a participative approach by building 4 pillars around which different organizations are interacting. And we rounded that out, the discussion out with Amina's presentation on looking at different mechanisms that have been used, specifically the handoff mechanism and the implications that it has for governance and participation in governance of technologies. And I think one of the threads that ran throughout was the need to really build expertise, both to borrow Amina's words, both technocratic and democratic expertise. And and this takes on an additional, I think, lens when you look at the power dynamics that exist between the global north and the global south. And so thinking about how we can also really empower not just communities on ground, but all sorts of actors in the global south to really think about what that power dynamic and differential means for them in the context of global regulation on AI, and what participation and meaningful participation for them can look like. Back to you, Tim.
Thank you, Vinay. So we've gone from that participatory development inside the systems of building AI to a lot of that governance conversation at the interface of inside and outside. Maybe our resistance track will take us more to those kind of outside resistance spaces, but I'd love to hear where has resistance conversation taken us from the manifesto put to us in our plenary.
So hello, everyone, and thank you for sticking around, those of you who had to get up really early and those of you who had to stay up really late. We really appreciate it. So we had a range of talks in our resistance panel, from homelessness to autonomous weapons to reimagination to body imagery. And it's hard to find actionable items when one talks about resistance, because often it is more important to identify the problem's extent in the systems and the ethos. So it could be from identifying failures and making sure the developers know about those failures, to just saying no, whether that's to AI, whether that's to data collection, whether that's to data centers. So I don't know if Keto or others would like to add anything to that. We also had a great discussion about the tension between the global north and the global south, about what happens if AI is seen as a route towards shared prosperity or economic development. I don't think it's easy to circle, and I'm comfortable in the global north, and I'm sometimes quite ill-equipped to say no, but sometimes I think we need to say no, or we at least need to give people the power to say no.
Fantastic. Thank you for setting that kind of summary of the work on resistance and the many places that participation and resistance kind of happen. So I'm going to close us very briefly. This is the start of a conversation through the Participatory AI Research and Practice Symposium. We have some more activity coming up when I find my slides, so I really encourage you to do share your key actions for next steps. We will have part 2 of our conversation in Paris on the 8th of February, just ahead of the main AI Action Summit. I know many of you obviously are here online because you can't join us for that, but if you are going to be at the summit, we're now running a wait list, but if you drop me a line, I'll make sure we get your tickets released next week. We're also hoping to live stream and record those discussions as well. Some of the people here and some of the people who'll be at that event are then taking part in the main AI Action Summit on the 10th of February. So we hope that our conversations will feed into their work. And we also have a small panel again in Paris at the AI Fringe on the 11th, where we're talking to a mixed policymaker, government, industry and civil society audience. If you'd like an invite to that and you'll be in Paris, then do drop me a line as well. But also we're really keen to sort of say, well, where do these communities go next? This is a one piece of convening, but really seeing so many cameras on. I'm going to stop the screen sharing and just encourage you to, if you can put your camera on, and maybe if we unspotlight me, then we can see the many people across the globe who are working on bringing the voice of affected communities into the shaping, the governance, the development of AI, and putting this whole process together has been really fantastic to realize how many people are working on this, yet also how big the challenge ahead is when technologies are developing at pace with power structures behind them that we need to find ways to engage with, co-opt, challenge, shape and change. I've taken off the screen my slides. I won't put them back up, but I will say a big thanks to all of the programme committee who've put pairs together. You'll find them listed on the website, but also the Connected by Data team who've supported Emily and others, all our chairs who've stepped in also. So thank you, everyone.